Just to go back to the funding part, because I'm curious. You just finished your round last year. You raised your 1.85 Series A. Are you looking to do another sometime soon?
Yeah, we are. So there's a couple of challenges. So one, we're a recurring revenue model. So there's a backlog of revenue that we can build up, but that's only going to be able to be recognized over time. So in the meantime, right, we need cash flow.
Sure.
So where we can definitely see the demand, and we can see the pipeline growing, and the number of Fortune 500 Global 2000 firms that we discuss with continues to grow, and also internationally. Like, we've got several huge companies in India, very actively interested in our services, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. We only have a physical presence here in Bangkok right now. So I think there's an opportunity to kind of expand, at least from a business development perspective. We've also started to see some positive ROI on our marketing spend. And I think because of the nature of gamification, and then more broadly, mobile marketing, mobile engagement, is still not widely understood yet. There's an education component that we need to drive in the market here. So there's still, if you think about smartphone apps, I think 9 out of 10 smartphone apps are foreign apps, not Thailand made. But Thai people tend to be the most heavy smartphone users of any demographic in the world. So there's a huge opportunity to build apps for local audiences.
Now, having said that, why do you think that is?
Well, I think there's been a little bit of a misperception that the talent and the quality isn't there in terms of the types of apps that can be produced in Thailand for Thai people. A lot of the bigger companies doing things on digital have been very mobile and social media centric, so they haven't really adopted mobile strategies and how to implement those. So a lot of the agencies and consulting firms were very comfortable to talk about how to set up a website or an e-commerce website or how to run a social media campaign. They were less comfortable with the mobile side of things. And I think it's also difficult to understand how to monetize on mobile. So how do I justify the spend for mobile if I don't know what my ROI will be on that? So, and that again comes down to business model, like how these firms can start offering products and services through mobile and how they can monetize mobile. So I think there's been a challenge so far.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about some of your products. Let's talk about Playbook.
Yeah. So Playbook, Playbook. The idea behind Playbook was, and kind of piggybacking on the previous question, it's hard for mobile to be adopted because there's not a WordPress for mobile. There's not a Shopify for mobile. It's a kind of a black box or sort of a weird science that these companies don't understand how it all works. There's a lot of coding involved. It's hard to kind of update and release new content, new features from just the back end. You've got to actually continue to modify the code. So, with Playbook, we're just trying to basically build an app as a service where, just like with modern apps, the majority of the functionality is provided from the cloud. The mobile is just a client, but all the information, all the content, all the tracking, all the promotions, all that can be done from the cloud. So we come up with this model called Playbook, where it's a fully integrated app as a service that includes gamification, it includes registration, it includes analytics, content management, the ability to run loyalty programs, coupons, and basically build these playbooks and target verticals that we think could benefit from that. So we've started out with, I think, about 5 or 6 different verticals for quick service restaurants. Because again, the biggest challenge, if I'm a customer and I go to sit down at a restaurant, what's the first thing I'm going to do once I sit at the table while I'm waiting for my order? Is I'm going to be using my smartphone. I'm going to be lining and Facebooking and doing all that other stuff. There's an opportunity that the restaurants are missing in capturing that attention and increasing the engagement and building deeper loyalty, because they don't have mobile services that sort of manifest themselves when I'm on site. So I think there's an opportunity there for quick service restaurants. We've got hospitality companies. I just think the loyalty programs can be totally improved massively.
Sure.
And we've got other verticals. So the idea is it's a monthly fee, nothing to invest up front.
Okay, great.
It's just a subscription model, and we automatically fix bugs and add features continuously to that app, because we understand that once you launch an app, the journey is not over. You still have to operate that app, and so there's 2 parts to it. So that's the model.
What about the customization part?
Customization. So the reason why we call it Playbook is because we believe that we've come up with a very solid solution, in the sense that we believe that we're addressing probably 80% of the needs that business may have in a mobile solution. There may be some room for customization, but the idea for us, in order for us to scale this and to really get economies of scale and bring down the cost of adopting mobile, we kind of need to fix the features in a sense, and kind of present an off-the-shelf or pre-built solution. So customization is always an option, but the way we can get maximum sort of ROI is if we can just basically keep the investment as low as possible, right? So that they can start to see the benefits of mobile.
Okay. Let's say you have a company that wants to subscribe to get it up and running. Are we talking days, weeks?
Yeah, we're talking weeks. So the target is about 4 weeks, and the way that works is we probably spend about a week or 2 to do the branding, so replacing all the logos and making sure it's matching the corporate identity and the colors and all that.
Now, this is done within their app, or this using your...
No, so Playbook is basically an app that we publish on behalf of the client. So we're, in a sense, kind of like a publisher. So we like to think of ourselves potentially one day as a Nintendo of gamified apps for business. So if we can have a common platform, common user experience, common points framework and game framework, and just build different playbooks for different verticals, we could have, we could be an EA or an Activision or a Nintendo of business apps, but are gamified.
Interesting. I believe you recently closed a deal. Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah. So we can't go into too much details on this one, but this is with one of the largest consumer packaged goods companies. They've got thousands and thousands of brands, right? They're one of the big 2 on that sense. And they've adopted our playbook, and we're going to be launching that probably by March or April. And we're going to be doing that in some certain markets. This is a global launch. We're going to be doing certain markets first, and then hopefully rolling that out to a wider user base. But this one's a little bit different. This one isn't consumer focused as much as it's more internally focused for employees. So there's, I think, a little bit of
Okay, I follow you. It's for the employees, not...
Yeah, it's actually for employees. And actually, gamification is wonderful in those settings, because it's not so much of consumer loyalty that you're trying, or spend, or consumption that you're trying to drive, in as much as it may be driving compliance, or improving efficiency, improving knowledge sharing. So there's tons of other business value that you can gain, rather than just on the marketing side. So maybe enabling HR and IT to become innovators as well.
Now, and I take it that this package will be priced according to the size of the company? Or?
Yeah. So so if you're a customer of ours, you'll be able to, from a single dashboard, manage many apps and many systems. So if you are a company like a large consumer packaged goods company, and you have lots and lots of brands inside, right? Basically, what we'll do is we'll charge you for every additional app or brand that you want to add into this umbrella.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, so if you wanted to sort of add your loyalty system to this app, that app, my website, my connected car system, and my TV streaming device, that's how we sort of monetize in that sense. So we charge a multiple for each sort of node that we connect into this the system.
Can you give us an example of one of your current customers that is using either Playbook or one of your other products?
Yeah. So we work with StarHub in Singapore. So they're one of the top two telcos and communications company. So they started out as a cable company, cable TV, expanded into broadband, and then have also expanded into mobile services. What we're doing for them, again, is actually not on the customer side, it's actually on the employee side. So we've built a merchant loyalty program for vendors that sell prepaid SIM cards. So imagine you go to 7-Eleven and you need to top up, or I need to buy a SIM card at the airports. And, well, there's different choices I can choose from, right? If I'm an independent vendor, I could easily sell telco A, or I could sell telco B. And what we're trying to do is for resellers, merchants, vendors, and other people in a business supply chain, we're also trying to build solutions for that. So we're able to actually reward the seller immediately after the SIM card has been activated or topped up. We're able to reward them with points and loyalty, merchant loyalty. So this will help them to be incentivized to drive one particular product. So it would work the same way if I'm a retailer and I want to sell Pepsi versus Coke. I would look for creative ways to encourage that retailer to drive my product versus my competitor's product, especially in situations where you have competing products and they're side by side with each other, right? They're essentially commodities. So how do I drive loyalty to a commodity sale?
I think there's a lot of potential with loyalty. What are you seeing in the industry?
So I'm learning a lot about loyalty, and the reason loyalty is important is I think incentives matter. Okay, and I think that we're moving towards a world where subsidies are real, freemium is real, try before you buy is real, and we have to be thinking about how we deploy our advertising and marketing budgets in a different way, right? So Uber and a lot of these on-demand economies are giving away rides for growth. Dropbox used that playbook, Gmail used that playbook. Unlock more storage for every invite you make. And I think internet companies understand these unit economics pretty well, and they can track that. And I think other traditional industries could, if they understood how to manage their loyalty program a little bit better, if they could look at it the problem that a lot of loyalty companies have also, and I mean the companies that actually issue the points, not necessarily the vendors, is that loyalty is a liability, right, for them. So they've got to have cash stored away for every loyalty point that they give out, right? And the problem is you've got all these loyalty points in circulation, and that's a liability on the business. And they may expire. In some cases, they don't expire. We make the thresholds really weird for how you can spend points. I may have 900, but I need 1,000 to buy something. And if I never go and earn another 100 points, I'll never be able to earn and burn those points. So there's a huge opportunity to rethink how we do loyalty. And I think the companies that we can learn from tend to be the social gaming companies that are really good at managing virtual economies, because they understand how to build and monetize microtransactions. And so I think if we could trade at a micro level these points, that could be a huge opportunity. And I think that helps the business. It also helps the consumer, because at least they feel that there's an incentive.
Have you talked to gaming companies, or are you currently working with any gaming companies?
Not directly, but I come from a gaming company background, so that's what I did prior to starting this company. And several people on our staff also happen to be former game developers or former game designers. So we're infusing that into the culture. As far as the gaming company is concerned, they're not very interested in gamification right now, because the vision of what it could be hasn't really been fully realized, and it's just not exciting yet to the game development community. But I think with AR, VR, and higher resolution graphics, and more interesting gamified experiences, I think you will start to see Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, and some of these bigger publishers start making, whether it's brain games or training or health and wellness games, and for other sorts of activities as well. So that will eventually, I think, diffuse.
That's interesting that you brought that up, because this would blend well with the VR market.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
More investment is going into VR, in a VR environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is part of the long-term future for us. I mean, that's an area where we think we can continue to grow into, because I mean, I essentially have a career in doing 3D gaming, and so I know that world, and I also know that the current VR technology right now is essentially built upon smartphone technology. So it's not going to be a huge jump to go from being really good at developing smartphone apps to doing VR. I think there will be a lot of crossover on the technology side. I mean, even Google Cardboard it's still just a phone. You're still launching an app to do VR, right? So you're just coding a different type of app. But I mean, to do it well, you probably need to have more 3D artists and 3D asset production. You know, your user interfaces will not just be two-dimensional; they'll be more three-dimensional. But yeah, there's absolutely tons of potential there. And again, where I'm interested in the enterprise space, I think you could do training using VR. You could do simulations. You could do, you know, if you're an oil rigger and you're a big oil company like you're Shell, and you want to do sort of like disaster preparedness training for when an oil rig has an issue, it's a lot cheaper to do that in VR than it is to replicate that in real life. You can impact more people at scale. And studies show that when you can put people in a game environment, right, their reaction time when they're presented with a real life environment is improved. So I think there's just tons of opportunity on the VR side as well.
Great. Heading in a different direction, let's talk about competitors. Are there any competitors in the gamification space?
Yeah, there are. So there are actually lots of players in this space, and the biggest ones are in the U.S., and they've raised money from the biggest VC firms, Kleiner Perkins, Norwest Venture Partners, American Express. So the way I define gamification is maybe a little bit different than how most people define it, but I think gamification is actually a huge idea and not necessarily a software category. I think just in personalization or A/B testing is more of a concept or more a way of doing things rather than it being a standalone product or application that you can. So basically, there's not an app I can download today and say like, okay, I'm doing gamification only. Gamifying, you have to gamify a content that already exists or a process that already exists. So I describe it as sort of like salt or sugar. It's something you add to food. You don't eat salt or sugar directly by itself because that doesn't make sense. So I just think that like gamification is this big idea. But the companies, there's several companies in the U.S. that have started before us, and the way we differentiate from them is they got started a little bit before us, probably in 2010, 2011.
Can you tell me the name?
So I think there's like some of the most well-known or most well-funded are companies like Badgeville, there's Bunchball, there's Big Door, Gigya, and basically they've built organizations and parks around either Web 2.0, so they're very web-focused, or they integrate into enterprise software like Salesforce, SharePoint, Dynamics. So they're add-ons inside of other ecosystems. I think what separates us is we're hyper-focused on mobile. I think that our company is actually much more millennial-driven. We're also in Asia. So we add in a lot of the consumer behavior that we're witnessing here in Asia that might not necessarily translate to the U.S. Right? I mean, we're starting to see that east to west integration of innovation and consumer experience, like stickers into the Facebook app and those sorts of things. But emojis are extremely popular in the Western society, and in Asia, we've already advanced to stickers.
Yeah.
So we're already several years ahead. So I think I just think gamification was meant to come from here, because no other countries in the world are as game-centric and crazy as a lot of the Asian countries. You just look at South Korea and their professional gaming industries. Look at all the huge numbers that China does as a gaming industry. Even Thailand, it's actually a huge gaming market. So there's some innovations that need to come from here that may not come from more traditional American or European companies. So I think that's what separates us. And in terms of Asia, I think there's no other company that has the strength of brand that we have, that has raised the amount of money that we have, and that has a platform that is as sophisticated and enterprise grade that we have. So really, we're kind of like the market leaders in Asia.
And how are you getting your customers? Are they finding you on your website?
They're finding us on our website more and more. So that's the benefit of having, when you drone on about a certain topic for many, many years, eventually people get tired of hearing about it. But what happens as a consequence is you end up getting really good SEO results. You end up becoming top of mind for a lot of people. So that's the challenge you face when you go after a niche, is that you might have to talk a lot about that niche to kind of build the grassroots and build that sort of demand, but versus something that's very obvious like e-commerce, where everyone's piling into.
Sure.
But I think it's easier to become a leader if you take a niche that no one is doing. And I think as time goes on, the buzzword of gamification continues to grow. We're starting to see better and better examples of it than we've ever seen. Duolingo is a great example of a gamified app that's gone huge, and they're teaching more people language than the entire U.S. education system. And Duolingo is basically the most popular language learning app in the world, and it's totally gamified. Khan Academy, another one. So there's some great examples of gamification. Foursquare and Swarm used to do that. So I think as companies really try to do a good job with gamification and not just make it an afterthought or slap-on, add-on type thing, the consumer demand will be there, and that will help the whole market.
Sure. Now you have plans on expanding and opening up another office?
Yeah, it's definitely in the plans now. Where we would go is still kind of to be determined, but we've got a tremendous amount of inbound interest from the Indian market. Okay, but we are more B2B, so we don't necessarily look at a country's size or population as an indicator of where we might want to launch our next market expansion. What we look at is the concentration of large enterprises. So we're more of a metro or city play, where we need to go do business development, we need to go meet lots of potential customers, and the better clustered they are, it's easier for us to do that. So metros like Tokyo are really important, Hong Kong, Singapore, because there's just tons of regional money, regional offices, decision makers. But India is one, Hong Kong is another. We'd like to have a full-time presence again in Singapore. I think there's tons of opportunity there. Maybe South Korea. So the dimensions that we look for when we're talking about market expansion is we want to see generally a younger population, or at least a population of gamers who we think would be able to be interested in these types of products. We'd like to see smartphone penetration, but more than smartphone penetration, we'd like to see mobile broadband penetration. That's more important because all of our apps require the cloud. So that's another indicator for us. And we'd like to see how many Global 2000 companies, how many super large cap companies are inside a particular country. And so, Hong Kong and Singapore and Malaysia punch above their weight in a sense than Vietnam and Indonesia and Philippines, which actually has a smaller number of Global 2000 super large market cap companies. So those are some of the indicators that we look for when we think about market expansion. And also, we just look at the web traffic, or we look at the inbound demand, where is it coming from? So we use all those to kind of guide us.
Are you guys hiring?
We are, yeah. So thank you for asking. Yeah, so we are always in need of developers, and good engineers, because we want to create a place where we think we can offer them a career path, right? Because the problem that we have here is a lot of developers, after a few years, say, I want to go be a manager because I can't sort of level up in my career unless I'm managing people. What that does is that removes them from the talent pool and is replenished by the younger, inexperienced people. But it's tough to find someone with 10 years of experience, and you can't really get those super high-end AI programmers, those data scientists, because they're getting out of being a contributor, being a maker, and becoming more of a manager. So we want to give people an opportunity and a path towards building a long kind of software career. And who knows, maybe that can help them land very lucrative jobs at bigger players than us in the future. But so we're always looking for those developers, and that's one of the challenges that we face right now. And in fact, I think another area that could help a lot probably would be someone who can help take the burden of the sales and business development off of my shoulders. So if I can have more people out there representing Playbasis, educating the industry about Playbasis, doing workshops, consulting with customers and that kind of stuff on a business development perspective, that would be really great as well.
So let me ask you one more question. In the industry or in this sector, that will make the B2B gamification just really take off.
Yeah, what do I think needs to happen for it to take off? I think what needs to happen is what we're doing, in the sense of we've got to make it easier for companies to adopt this into their organizations. So from the early days when we were purely an API product, that's a little bit more difficult to sell into an organization than an off-the-shelf complete solution that's ready to be deployed within a matter of days or weeks. Right. So if we can shorten down the sort of lead time to value for the customers, if we can make it easier for them to purchase from us, if we can continue to be competitive on pricing and leverage economies of scale to our benefit and also to our customers' benefit, I think those are things. And then I think the other big part is going to be as a platform, which is ultimately what we want to do. What other value can we provide? How can we connect other companies into the platform that may want to reach our customers and users? So if we're doing a playbook for a huge CPG company or a telco, is there another company out there that may want to tap into that network and could be synergistic? And can we enable those people to either offer rewards, offer sort of gifts and trips, or do some data sharing or that kind of stuff? I think there's lots of interesting opportunities to do that.
Great. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank, on behalf of myself, Top Funded. Thank you, Rob, for giving us the time today.
My pleasure.
And we're looking forward to seeing some more great things from you.
Okay, cheers. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and